Welcome into a special edition of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, brought to you by the SBFFC on the TN2M network of shows. I am Seth Burchett, or the Phoenix Rocket, if you want to follow me on socials. We have a special program today. I sound really old when I say it like that. We got a special edition of the show tonight. Where we thank veterans. And we're going to have a couple on here tonight, or at least one. One might be having technical difficulties as we speak, but we will be having a veteran on to just thank them and talk about their experience, but also fantasy football as well, because that's really what brings us all together here. Joined in by my partners in crime, Mr. Chuck Ellis, and the founder, commissioner, president, and all things SBFFC, Dr. Harwood. Guys, how's it going tonight?
Very well. Good evening, gentlemen, and happy Veterans Day.
Good evening to everybody, too. Happy Veterans Day as well. You all are familiar with Bob Dylan, and he says a hero is someone who understands the responsibility that comes with his freedom. And quoted by the great Bob Dylan himself.
Well, Bob Dylan, one of the most recognized musicians in the world, so definitely quotable. I'll tell you what's not quotable was that game last night. Gosh, that was a snooze fest, wasn't it?
Brutal. That was very painful to watch. Even the final kick of the game was painful to watch.
You know, going into it, Dr. Harwood, I would not have guessed that the game would play out quite like that, or that it would be just that that boring. You know, these are two teams that typically play a little bit more of an exciting style of football, and it just felt like a defensive battle and just ugly all night.
Well, it's not a defensive battle. You know, the Eagles have been pretty decent at defense for the most part. It just maybe the Packers maybe they've ran out of gas. Maybe that could be but AJ Brown didn't do anything either. So I think they'll be interested to see what happens going forward. The Eagles seem like they've got the Lions this weekend. I like to see how their defense hits up against them.
Well, you know, Chuck, we talk about, we're going into week 11 now in the fantasy football season, and just mid-season awards, I guess. Does it feel like there's been a more disappointing player based on where you got him than A.J. Brown? I mean, and taking injuries out of it, because I don't think you can necessarily factor that in, but just a guy you took high that really has not had the type of season that you would expect from them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I believe he was going in some drafts middle to the end of the second round. Same thing with Brian Thomas Jr., another guy that's laid an egg this year. Chase Brown probably hasn't lived up to his full potential. But yeah, there's A.J. Brown I don't know. There's something off about him, and I'm not sure he fits in what Philadelphia is trying to do. A change of scenery might do him well.
Yeah, Dr. Harwood, he's on his second team, and, you're a guy that knows him very well, being a Titans fan, where he started his career.
He was always an injury report every week when he was on the Titans. I mean,
is he a diva, though? I mean, is that what part of this is?
I think so. I think you're right. I think I don't know what exactly was wrong. You're playing for the best team in the NFC, arguably, and I just don't know what's in his head. Maybe he needs a life coach or a sports psychologist to figure this out. That might be an injury that may go beyond physicality.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And at the end of the day, it's about winning. And if the Eagles' formula to win is to run the football and play good defense, then, I mean, your stats are going to have to suffer from that. I think there was a couple weeks there where they were trying to force the ball to him, and the Eagles kind of lost their identity a little bit. But they are obviously a team that wants to run the football and play good defense. So if he doesn't want to play that game, maybe it is best for him to move on.
Yeah, I just don't see a world where they keep him around if they can get any kind of value out of him. I mean, I don't think they're going to get a number one, first round draft pick for him. I certainly think he's a first-round talent, but in the age of the NFL and trades, you just don't get a lot of teams trading first-round picks, at least not where you're moving around in the draft. And he feels like a guy that maybe they can get a second-round pick at best. But I also don't know the contract situation. Maybe I should, but I'm not real familiar with it. But I just can't see a world where he's in Philadelphia next year. To me, he's maybe the most disappointing player from the drafts this year. Genty comes to mind maybe as a guy you can mention. Brian Robinson, or the Jags receiver,
Brian Thomas.
Yeah. Thomas, yeah. Well, Brian Robinson scored this week. I think that's why he was in my brain. But yeah, Brian Thomas. I mean, those are guys that it just feels like has had disappointing seasons based on where you took them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
AJ Brown is contracted through the 2029 season. It's a $32 million average annual salary with $84 million guaranteed money.
Well, let me rephrase that. I think there is a world where he's still there because I don't know how many teams are willing to take that contract. So let me revise that statement.
Yeah, and talking about what Dr. Harwood said about about him being on the injury report all the time in Tennessee, maybe there's something in the water down there because Washington brought Treylon Burks up off the practice squad, got one game out of him, and now he's having surgery on his finger. He's done.
He's done too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. But
good Lord, today.
So looking ahead to this upcoming week, and I'm going to go ahead and throw one of these questions out there because I think it's something we can talk about now. Is waiver wire pickups. That's something that we kind of focus on whenever we do a show on a Tuesday night. And this is a week where the Wraith wants to know if there are one or two defensive streamers that you can think of that could show up this weekend. And I'll give you one right off the top of my head if this team, if their defense is available, based on who they play, is Miami, because they're playing the Commanders this week. So I think they are definitely a streamer defense. I've got a waiver wire request in a league where I have all of $5 left. So I don't think I'm going to get them. I hope I do, but I'm a Colts defense owner, and I'm going to have to find a defense to replace them this week. And by the way, Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to have to find some production there because he put up almost 50 points, which is unheard of in fantasy football. 49.5, I think, is what we got out of him. And he basically carried my team to victory. So thanks for that. And I think that he's a guy that, based on where you took him, we talk about most disappointing picks. He might have been the gem of the draft because you're getting a guy that has like a number one overall talent. I got him at the end of the second round. And I think that's kind of where middle to end of the second is where he was going, and he quite possibly is the MVP of the league, Dr. Harwood.
I would agree right now. He is the MVP not only in fantasy but in the NFL. I read an article today that he is current number one on the favorites to be the NFL MVP. And Colts win the division, then you'll be set for that MVP. So.
The only thing I'll say about that is the NFL typically does not like to give the MVP to anybody not named the position of quarterback. It feels like the NFL does not like giving that award to running backs, wide receivers, etc. That it is always a quarterback. But honestly, there's not been a quarterback this year that has stood out and had an MVP type season. There's really not. If you're talking about just overall best quarterback play, you might be looking at Baker Mayfield, which is not an MVP candidate, really. He's a good quarterback, and I love him, but he's not an MVP candidate. And, your typical guys, your Lamars have been hurt. Josh Allen has been a disappointment overall, at least from the football side, maybe not the fantasy side. And Mahomes is starting to come on, so maybe he makes a late run. If they can find an excuse to give it to Pat Mahomes, that's who's going to win the MVP.
True. And getting back to your defensive streamers that may show up, Seth, are you wanting to spend $1 on the defense, or are you willing to go in Sunday morning or Saturday night to get somebody for zero that may be
well,
left.
I think
get outbid.
In this type of scenario where I'm in a playoff hunt, I put a significant portion of my whole $5 on the Miami Dolphins defense. Hopefully nobody in my division is watching this currently. It outbids me, but typically I wait on defenses. But this week, because I love that matchup so much, if I can go ahead and pick them up for a couple bucks, I'm going to do that, and because I'm only going to use them for a week.
Yeah, I agree, Seth. You took the words right out of my mouth with the Dolphins. That's where I was going at. And another one you could possibly get maybe is Atlanta against Carolina. They might be floating around. And to touch on your topic a little bit about MVP quarterbacks, I would have Baker Mayfield and Jonathan Taylor's cohort, Daniel Jones, at the top of the list for MVP quarterbacks right now. So
I would have agreed with you until this last week. I don't think he looked real good this last week. I saw a meme, or maybe it was just a headline that said, only Daniel Jones can make being bloody look geeky.
He stood in there. He was taking some punishment.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
Well, let me tell you my streaming defense. You were talking Miami, Seth, and I like that because they're playing in Madrid. I mean, who knows? Miami Dolphins have some talent. I mean, I wouldn't put too much stock in them overall, in a long term. But every time they go overseas, when you're two struggling teams like that with a backup, I mean, that's definitely worth a little bit of credibility. I don't understand why the over-under is 47.5. Maybe because of A-Chain, but I mean, I do like them as a streaming defense. Also like the Atlanta Falcons against the Carolina Panthers as a streaming defense as well. The Atlanta Falcons, but the thing about it is the Falcons have forced 13 turnovers, and Bryce Young, I'm not going to confuse him for Tom Brady, and I think there might be some credibility there, and the Chiefs. They might be a free agent in your league. They might have been dropped at Denver. That division again, that might be a repeat of the Eagles and Green Bay last night. And also, I'll give you one more: Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy may still be struggling.
He looked bad,
and he had some fantasy points, but it was kind of gruesome to watch.
He also turned the ball over 3 times.
Yeah, he didn't like that pressure in his face. They put pressure up the middle on him, and he struggled with that.
So, I know there's a lot of high over-unders this week in the NFL, but, I mean, that might be somebody that you might want to consider. And then if you want to look ahead a week, next week, Las Vegas Raiders versus Cleveland Browns.
Listen, we got to be throwing some shade on the Browns here. I mean,
well, we're looking long term.
It's true, we are, but goodness gracious,
and we're looking long term here. 2 weeks away, which is forever in the NFL.
Well, I'll give you another one too that might be worth streaming as well if you're desperate. You might look at that Cowboys defense this week against the Raiders. I mean, Raiders offense is not good. It's bad. And Geno got banged around. I don't know what his availability will be. I assume he'll play, but you don't know until it gets closer to time. They did boost their defense with Quinnen Williams, so they have done things to make that defense a little bit better. So in a situation where you might need a streamer defense, Dallas is another one that you might look at just based on the matchup.
I have Geno Smith ranked 11th this week on fantasy quarterbacks as a starter. Now I've got him ranked above Mariota, Darnold, Mayfield, Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love.
I just don't know who he's throwing to. I mean, he played a good Broncos defense. Now the Broncos defense is not the Cowboys defense. That's obvious. But I just don't know who other than Bowers he's throwing to that'll be productive.
Well, Trey Tucker might get a little fancy look. I mean,
well, it looked like last week Tyler Lockett was his guy last week.
Yes, Tyler Lockett. I mean, the Cowboys are ranked 33rd out of 32 teams in the NFL in pass defense.
Yeah, they're not good. I just like that matchup. Like I said, it's if you're desperate. If you can't get, if you can't get the Dolphins, if you can't get the Chiefs, and to play off of your and Chuck, feel free to debunk this, but those international games, I can see a world where you might pick up the Commanders defense just because they're playing overseas, and the Dolphins have been known to turn the ball over. They've got really one weapon, two, but who knows what Tua shows up. If you get the Tua that's turning the ball over and concussion prone, then it could be a good week if you need a streamer defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jet lag is a real thing. I mean, these guys don't have a lot of time over there to adjust, and I agree. I think you could do worse than either one of those defenses this week. Neither one of those teams offensively are lighting the scoreboards up. Typically, the Dolphins are a Jekyll and Hyde team every week. So I think Seth's onto something there. If you're in a desperate situation, either one of those defenses could work.
Yeah, I just think, and it's funny that we're talking streamer defenses this week after last week so many good teams were on a bye, and this week it's just the Saints and the Colts. But if you're like me, I mean, I've been playing the Colts defense every week. I picked up the Colts defense just because I knew they were playing the Titans twice.
Well, there you go. That's good enough for me.
And I do, and I'll target defenses like that sometimes. If the Bills are playing the Jets, which did not work out well for Bills fans the last time, but there are situations where I'll take a defense just because of the division they're in, and I know they get two really bad matchup or good matchups for them, but playing bad teams.
That is true. That is totally correct on that. So,
by the way, for those interested, and I don't know how many are watching that are interested, but I've got the UK U of L game on behind me. Well, not behind me, in front of me, behind my screen, and Kentucky's leading 21-18, I think. So, go Cats if you're watching and you're a basketball fan.
Tim Gentry is there this week. Tim Gentry, he's an Army Reserve veteran. He
okay,
very, very good captain and auctioneer in the SBFFC. He is at that game live tonight, along with SBFFC owner Rob Creek.
It's probably a little bit rowdy in Louisville tonight if you're there watching that game, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're in Louisville, if you exit that game, if you get a career as a police officer, you can get a bullet hole in the lung of your choice if you hang downtown too late at night.
Well, let's on that note, we're going to take a break, and we are going to welcome on our first guest, Dr. Harwood. Who are we bringing on here?
Well, I think David Berger. I think his camera was working.
Yep, we're good.
He's good. All right. Well,
yep, we're good.
He is the owner of the Hot Chub Time Machine. We also host a podcast. Usually it's on Tuesday nights, but the producer of that show is a veteran as well, and they're spending time together. Team named Hot Chub Time Machine in the SBFFC. They're number 16 overall in the standings, the leaderboard, 1,489 points, and their record is 9-1. So it's a very, very good. He's been hovering around that top 10 pretty much all season. And they look like they're getting ready to make a strong run. And they've got a lot of good opponents in that division. Brandon Fox is in that division. Andy Carey's in that division. Seth Stewart's in that division. You got a lot of, Red Dallas is in there. I mean, there's a lot of good competition in that division. And right now, David Berger is looking good. He's also in our fantasy baseball league. And Cleveland Guardians, and he's also Cleveland Browns fan. So I think I didn't know if you knew that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, listen, the baseball is a little sore subject with me because I finished second, and there were some underhanded tactics that I myself would have taken that cost us the championship. But either way, I'll take it. We're going to take a break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor this week and every week, Trophy Smack. You are watching the Fantasy Football Power Hour, brought to you. Well, hang just a second. Let me reset that. You're watching Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC on the TN2M network of shows here on YouTube. We'll be back in a minute after a word from our sponsors. That is Trophy Smack. Check them out, trophysmack.com, for all of your fantasy championship needs, whether it is trophy belts, helmets, chains, pendants, custom Dr. Harwood messages, whatever you need, they've got it there at trophysmack.com. We're going to welcome on our guest now, Mr. David Berger, who himself, Dr. Harwood, am I correct, is a veteran as well. Yes. David, first and foremost, on today and every day, thank you for your service. We certainly do. Thank you also for taking the time to join us tonight. Well, hang on just a second. We've got some mic issues.
Well, while we get that figured out, David is also a strong player in the auction leagues. He's an expert in the auctions. He does very well in those, and also as well, he does a lot of fantasy leagues with his son, and they're co-owners together, and all that good stuff. And I got to know David by chance meeting in Barnes Noble. We were reading fantasy football magazines, and we met. And he's got his thumbs up. And let's go ahead and welcome in Mr. Berger to the show.
Yeah, David, I want to reintroduce you again. A veteran of our country on Veterans Day. We wanted to have you on and talk about that, but also fantasy football as well. But from the show, for Chuck and Dr. Harwood, thank you for your service, and thanks for taking the time to come on with us tonight, and welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it, and for the kind words. And on behalf of every veteran, we appreciate it all.
Well, can you give us just before we get into football, can you give us a little bit of your military background?
So after I graduated high school, I went off to play football at the College of Worcester in Ohio, which has some fame because their coach is the one that went to Marshall that the movie was made about.
Oh, yeah.
So after 2 years, I was going to transfer to Mount St. Joseph in Cincinnati and play for John Pont, who won the Rose Bowl in 1968 with Indiana. And then I just felt something inside. My father served, my grandfather served. I grew up in love with military history and everything military. And before the first Gulf War, I decided after my sophomore year to go ahead and join the Army.
Well, we certainly do. Thank you for that. My uncle was an Army veteran and served in Desert Storm. I think he was stationed in Saudi Arabia and Somalia, I think is where he was at. But he's no longer with us, but we do remember. I try to remember him every day as well. So, David, I know you, especially from baseball, because that's a much smaller setting, but football as well. Dr. Harwood kind of gave your fantasy football resume for this year, and quite a successful season so far. 14th overall in the standings. Talk about that process coming in and what your draft was like and what has led you to the success this year.
Well, I do the main event every year with my oldest son, Dakota. This will be our 4th year. We've won 2 championships so far, 2 trophies. I believe we finished in the top 20 the first year. The year we didn't, we knew off the bat we had a horrible draft. This year, we just took quality value. We tried to get the first pick. We got outbid. We took the second pick. We ended up Bijan. We ended up getting Adams, Hampton, unfortunately, who got injured, able to pick up Vidal. And our strategy is just to be consistent week to week. I don't like to switch out players per se. So, of course, injuries happen, but we try, and also on the matchup, to really get good value out of our picks. We don't always reach for, the people that may have the highest upside. Because last year we had a plan to get Richardson, and we did. And unfortunately, as you guys know, that didn't work out. So when we draft, and then we just stay on top of the waiver wires and try to plan ahead. It's definitely for streaming defenses. So, we've just been, obviously there's luck involved, but we just try to stay consistent. And that's what we've been this year. We've been consistent.
Are you talking to Anthony Richardson?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, I was part of that as well, and that support group meets every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. We're still recovering from that pick from last year as well. So I completely understand there, and I myself as well kind of got talked into that hype going into last year.
Well, AR has driven people to drink WR, Woodford Reserve.
Yeah, he's certainly driven people to drink and lots of other things, that's for sure. And interesting thing, I see his name come up in trade talks all the time now, and I'm thinking, who wants him? Like, who really wants him? As Bowling Green High School grad and former Kentucky Wildcat, Eastern Kentucky Colonel Vito Tisdale said, that boy hot dog water. And that's exactly what he is.
And Ben Bruni's just a hot dog.
Yeah, something like that. So, David, obviously you talk about the draft and kind of your strategy with that. Waiver wire is something we like to focus on when we have Tuesday night shows. How have you worked the waiver wire, and is there anybody that you like this week?
We have worked the waiver wire. We were able to get Vidal. We still have about $230 left. And something I learned a couple years ago, because we've already clinched a playoff spot. We're just trying to get that top points and then the best record, obviously, because that includes some money. I like to hold some in reserve because when you get to the playoffs, like 2 years ago, we're facing somebody that had Lamar Jackson. And we had enough money to block him from picking up Huntley at the time.
Oh, nice.
So we had no use for him, but we used the money to block him, and we're able to beat him and get the trophy. So you don't always
to be proud.
You don't always want to look at Fab money as what you can do to improve your team, because if you have a good roster, what are you going to do? So I'm saving for streaming defenses. One defense I do like this week that you guys, I don't think you talked about it, is the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Las Vegas Raiders.
I brought that up as kind of a desperation dart throw if you need a streamer defense this week. I do not like the Raider offense right now. They traded Jacoby Meyer away. They don't really have anybody to throw to outside of Brock Bowers, and I think teams are keying in on that, and I think Dallas will as well. And I think with Quinnen Williams, that helps the run game defense, and Genty, I don't think, has a great game either.
And Geno Smith is also prone to a 3-interception game or a pick six. And on defense, obviously the less points you allow, the more points you get, but you really get points from sacks and turnovers. And if you're fortunate enough to get a pick six, and that can make a difference. One of the reasons we lost our first game this week is because we played against a guy who had Jacksonville defense.
Yeah.
And they scored a defensive touchdown and a punt return touchdown. So that hurt us.
Yeah, well, if you played him, somebody had the Jets or the Seahawks defense. I mean, it was a good week for that team, at least from the defensive perspective. That's for sure.
Two of the picks that Dr. Harwood and I talked about on the SBFFC Drive Time podcast were the Browns or the Jets. You can't count on back-to-back, and being a Cleveland fan, you understand, Seth.
Oh yeah.
Back-to-back, kickoff return, punt return for a touchdown. And Seth, in your honor, I wore my Guardians hat for the podcast.
Nice. Yeah.
So
yeah, listen, I always tell people in fantasy football, if a team's playing the Browns, generally speaking, try to have some part of that game, but not the Browns. It's generally just, because the Browns this year haven't had much fantasy relevancy. Njoku is a guy people drafted, some people to start. You're not starting him every week. Fannin has cut into some of that. Right now, the only player that you play every week is Judkins. That's it. Outside of that, you're maybe plugging a bye week hole. But if you have an option, you're probably not going there.
No, absolutely not. And even Judkins is stymied. They did change the play caller this week. It didn't really make much of a difference.
No.
They did score over 17 points, which is a positive sign.
but until they clear that organization, they're going to struggle. Judy did show up this week. He had a touchdown. And so that may be somebody, especially in the SBFFC where you have 2 receivers, 2 flexes, may be an option, with his upside. The quarterback situation is a mess. The whole, as you said, Seth, the whole fantasy outlook for Cleveland is a mess outside of Junkins.
Yeah, no, just have a piece of that game on the other side. If you can play, like I had Breece Hall in the main event, and that ended up being okay this week, especially since they blew a coverage and gave up the long touchdown to him on a screen pass. Dr. Harwood, Chuck, I feel like I'm hogging the conversation. Jump in.
Well, let me say this, and I'm gonna ask all 3 of you all this. Mr. Fuji, who's in the SBFFC, not the manager of Yokozuna.
I was gonna say I didn't think of food like if Mr. Fuji's in the SBFFC, we got some paranormal stuff going on.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuji, owner of the Striker Logistics in the Tom Lawrence division, needs our help tonight. They need a running back, and I'm going to tell you
because there's none on the waiver wire.
Nothing out there.
You're going to see some studs, boy, once we get there, because this week. And Striker Logistics is going to probably be a sponsor of the show if we can help him get a winning team this week. And team, he's got Genty, he's got Jonathan Taylor.
Okay.
Flexes don't have running back to flex. Najee Harris is on the bench. He could probably go ahead and drop him. Yeah. Tyler Algier, he could probably plug him in at the second running back.
Well, that'd be who I would plug in if those are my options.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
because you're not going to get anybody on the waiver wire at this point that is going to do better than Tyler Algier.
Then you got Jerome Ford's got him as well.
Why?
That's like being the nicest guy in prison. Here's what we need here. So I know Chris Rodriguez is a free agent in his division.
Okay.
And
he got banged up a little bit.
He's injured.
Okay, imagine that. It's Washington.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson, free agent. Kyle Juszczyk, who seems to sneak in and score a touchdown every so often we least expected. Emmanuel Wilson, Green Bay.
I mean, I don't love any of those options. I guess if I had to choose one, I'd pick Rodriguez and hope he's healthy, but I would take Algier over any of those guys.
Agreed. Completely.
How about Todd Johnson? How about Tyler Badie off of Denver?
I mean,
maybe
it's a 3-headed backfield.
Well, I don't know. I think J.K. Dobbins might be hitting the IR this week, so that makes Harvey a little hotter, and they got to have a backup. So,
I guess maybe if you're gonna pick up somebody that you can talk me into that one, David. But I mean, Algier's the best of all those names, is it not?
Agreed.
I totally agree. And we have both Bijan and Algier on our main event team. And I knew I was going to throw up when Algier outscored Bijan this weekend. But there's always a touchdown equity with Algier. He plays a lot, which as a Bijan owner perturbs me to no end. He's in for, it seems like, half the snaps. I only saw him go into it like twice this weekend where they had both of them in the backfield. But Algier's going to get carries, and he's going to get, looks like goal line carries. So Algier, given Rodriguez's, uncertain status, would be the best pickup for him.
Well, let me tell you about my scouting report on Mr. Algier for this week. And he says 23 snaps in week 10, second highest attempt in yardage. Algier has 6 rushing touchdowns this season. Bijan Robinson has 2. Matt Krantz now spent $400 on a guillotine league to pick him up off free agency when teams get eliminated. That's $200 a touchdown. Okay. Robinson has not had a carry inside the opponent's 5-yard line since week 1. I didn't know that until my scouting report gave this to me. And Algier can get a touchdown. Carolina run defense is starting to fall apart. 8th most PPR to running backs in the last 3 weeks. And I think, Mr. Fuji, you need to go ahead and throw all the salt on your opponent. Start Algier. But then I'd ignore all these other bums and preliminary bums, and except for Tyler Badie off the Broncos. I'm going to get Chuck's take on him because you said J.K. Dobbins may go in the IR, and then I'm going to tell you what Badie is worth on the free agent market this week.
Yeah, like I was doing a little reading today. He's trying to get some second opinions on his foot injury, but it's looking like it might be an IR stint. Harvey cannot carry the whole load. Plus, they're playing a very tough Kansas City Chiefs defense this week, a division game. It's going to be hyped, rowdy, coming off of a bye. They're going to be ready for Denver. I think Mr. Badai could get, 8-10 touches in this game. I just don't know what they're going to count for. Very tough defense, very tough matchup. If you're able to start the two running backs, I don't know if Johnson from Tampa's available at wide receiver. Still don't know what's going on with Godwin. You could just plug him in a flex position and just roll with Genty and Tyler Algier.
I'd be shocked if Taz Johnson's available.
No, he's not available in that division now. But RJ Harvey benefits, but can Denver can count on him to get 100% of the load? Mr. Fuji, I'd probably would spend about $75 to $100 your free agent budget to get Badie, but that may be too much. And 24% route rate, 6% target share on 12 snaps per game. But passing downs, change of pace back, could steal a touchdown. I mean, good second flex. I'd go ahead and get him for insurance purposes to hold him, later on in the season. He's 2 games out of the playoff realm with 2 games left. It's highly unlikely he gets to the playoffs unless there's miracles, which do have in the SBFFC. But D is worth a pickup here, and I think Algier, you got to start him at the second running back.
Yeah, another guy I might take a peek at this week is Mac Hollins. I think Mr. Butte is going to be out again. Hollins may be relevant again this week. He's worth a dart throw in that situation. I would take Hollins over all of those guys this week, except Algier, of course.
We got a couple comments. Dakota Berger chimes in and says, RIP Anthony Richardson for MVP movement from March 2024 to August 2024. Like I said,
is it that long?
There's a support group. We meet every Thursday at about 6:00. There are refreshments provided, but it's bad coffee. I'm just going to throw it out there.
So with Richardson, movement?
Yeah,
you sure that wasn't a bowel movement?
Well, that's what it ended up being. And then he also says career high for TDs already for Algier. So that tells you all you need to know. I mean, in that situation, I think if you get 10 points out of Algier, I think you're happy because you're playing a guy that you didn't plan on playing going in, and a guy that you are really plugging and playing at a position that you don't have any other real options.
Okay, guys, so if you don't mind me interjecting, I have a question for you. So we're kind of stuck this week. We have Jalen Hurts as quarterback, but we also have Burrow on the bench. And Philly's going against Detroit. Burrow is going against that Steelers defense. What's your guys' input as far as who would you start, Burrow or Hurts?
I think I'm going to jump in until I see Burrow play a full game. I'm going to go with Hurts just because I know what I'm getting.
I'm sorry. I meant Flacco.
Oh, I was going to say
Flacco. I was like, what? Yeah. I know they're talking about Burrow potentially coming back. I didn't know it was this soon. I still think I take that I'm going Hurts. I know they had a bad game this week, but I mean, he's a guy that you could potentially get a passing touchdown and 2 tush pushes. I just think you have to go with the guy that you drafted there in Hurts. That's where I would go with it personally.
Yeah, Philly's going to have to score more than 10 points this week to beat Detroit. Detroit's going to put points on the board. I think you dance with the lady you brought. You go with Hurts there.
And Hurts is a pretty mean dancer, that Tush. I mean, that's you got. I mean, you got to really have to consider that as well. And the thing is, Detroit, they're going to be the shooter, and Jalen Hurts can fight with them. And I know that over under that game right now is 48.5. And and then you got the Bengals, who are 49.5. That's Bengals have a higher over under, but this Jalen Hurts is more consistent. You drafted him early for a reason.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to say, well, hey, I'm going to draft like Jalen Hurts. He's get an anytime touchdown, and the rushing yards is second to none. And I think he's going to get 2 passing touchdowns and possibly a running touchdown. I mean, you've got to be really on the game. I know Jalen Hurts, he's got 204.5 on the prop. But the thing is, though, too, with Pittsburgh can maybe stop them. Pittsburgh's defense isn't that bad. I'm going to try to go for them as my defense this week in the SBFFC. And I've got Pittsburgh inside the top 12.
Well, they also have a pass rush that can be very disruptive at times.
So I've got Flacco 268.5 passing yards. But I just think where Jalen Hurts is going to do better is that rushing touchdown and less turnovers.
Well, hopefully that helps you out and makes the decision a little easier for you, David. We're gonna take a break here, and we're gonna David, again, thank you for taking the time to join us, and thank you for your service. We certainly do thank you today and every day. As well. We're going to let you go. We do thank you for taking the time here. Any final thoughts before we let you go and take a break?
Just real quick. I first started playing fantasy football back in 1993 in a recon platoon. We started a fantasy league, and I talked about this on a Drive Time podcast. And we unfortunately got deployed right after that. So we used to have to do everything by hand, and there were no yardage. You didn't get points for yards, passing yards, except for bonus for 100, 300. And that began the love of my fantasy football, was doing it with my brothers. And it's been a lifetime love ever since. And I get to share it with my son. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everybody that takes the time to thank any veteran for their service. And I appreciate you gentlemen having me on today.
Also, the SBFFC Drive Time podcast drops on Wednesdays usually. It'll likely drop Thursday this week because we didn't have a show this week, but stay tuned for the Drive Time podcast. I'll go on there with David. We have different perspectives. This podcast is good for those who drive time, listen to it in their car as they're driving back and forth to work and all that good stuff. So,
is that available on like iTunes and Spotify and all those good places?
Yes.
David, where's it available at?
It's available on iTunes and Spotify and a few other lesser ones. A recon brother of mine produced the show, Joe Hartfield. He does a great job, and it drops, and we'll drop it tomorrow night because of waivers. So I appreciate anybody that takes the time to listen to it. I think Dr. Harwood and I do a good job going back and forth and recapping the games and how it impacts, moving forward, especially as we get now into the real nitty-gritty. 2 weeks left in SBFFC, and then more than likely 4 weeks in any of the leagues associated with SBFFC.
Well, again, thank you very much, David. We're going to take a break, and we're going to cut you loose for the night. But again, thank you again, and we'll try to have you back on sometime soon.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David, very much.
That was our guest, David Berger, who was, again, a veteran. We're going to bring another veteran on here in just a second. But before we do that, we need to take a break. Pay some love to our sponsor over at Trophy Smack. You are watching the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC on the TN2M network of shows. We'll be back in a minute after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back, as we just heard a word, well, not heard, watched a word from our sponsors over at Trophy Smack. Check them out, TrophySmack.com, for all of your fantasy championship needs. They've got trophies, belts, pendants, chains, helmets, Dr. Harwood massages. They got lots of stuff over there.
Tim Jensen wedding photos.
Yeah, like anything you could want is over there at trophysmack.com. And we're going to welcome on our second guest of the night. Make sure you drop a comment if you've got any sort of stardom, set-em questions. We'll take those in this segment as well. Chuck, who do we have on? Or who are we bringing on?
Well, we have a very fine human being we're bringing on. He's a retired Navy captain, 27 years commissioned, and a damn good fantasy football player at that. He's very meticulous with the way he plays, and he's very smart, and you're not going to get anything by him. Mr. Tim Kroon.
Tim, first and foremost, before we start talking about football, I want to thank you very much for your service. I reiterated this with our last guest as well. Just not just today, but every day. We certainly, unless you've been through that, and I certainly have not, understand the sacrifice it takes to do that. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words, and happy Veterans Day. And I just hit send on the Trophy Smack order too. So hopefully that'll get you.
Listen, tell him Dr. Harwood sent you, and they'll make him send you a cameo and say nice things. So that's I guess that's the business model over there right now. I don't know.
Well, OnlyFans didn't work after it made 75 cents.
Well, listen, and they were trying to pay you to get off the air there.
That would have been about $3.
Yeah. There was a little bit more involved in that. Tim, can you give us a little bit of about your military? I know Chuck did a great job, but can you give us just a little background on your military career?
Sure. So I joined the Navy right out of high school, but through the form of the Naval Academy. So joined up in class of 1991 from the Naval Academy. Kid coming out of Washington State, so I didn't really quite know what I was getting into. With had grandfathers in the Navy, but no parents, and so a little bit of a rude awakening. I never stepped foot on the Naval Academy, and I'm actually in Annapolis here now. We live in a house that we bought years later, but Naval Academy experience got me the best thing going, and that's that I met a really awesome Commanders fan while I was going to school there, and married my wife Tricia. Met her while I was in school and while she was in college, and walking down the streets of Annapolis. So that was probably my prize thing biggest prize from the Navy, and starting that family there. But anyway, we got married. We waited a while after the academy graduation, about 3 days, and I got married and started our career off, and moved around 6 different ships. I was a surface warfare officer, so I was a ship driver. Did 6 different sea tours and different platforms all over the world, different conflicts. Did some short time in between, taught at the Naval Academy. And that's when we bought the house here, served at the Pentagon, and taught at a few other places, and eventually crossed over, commanded a ship, and then crossed over to the acquisition side of the business for the last 8 years of my career, and retired in 2018. So do a lot of consulting work for Department of Defense now, and still kind of doing contributing in ways I can. Navy's a young man's game, but doing what I can to help out still.
Tim, how's your fantasy football career? How's that? What's your fantasy football resume look like? How'd you get to know Chuck and all that?
Yeah, so I've been doing fantasy football, I guess, about a little over 20 years. And during one of our short tours, kind of hooked up with one of my neighbors and our 2 kids, and we had a fantasy league of 4. So it was 2 dads and two boys, and in fact Ryan is in fantasy league that Chuck is a commissioner for right now, and actually came in second last year, I think, if I remember.
Yes, he did.
So he was a little tiny guy, and so it was 2 dads, 2 kids, and that got us started. And it was just bragging rights, and really has always been about just bragging rights with the kids until I joined Chuck's league. But that was how it started, and then we had so much fun that everywhere I went, I kind of started making a new league wherever I went. So when I was going to work in Navy circles and at the Pentagon and off of the Washington Navy Yard, where the headquarters is for acquisition stuff, got some leagues going, and everybody got involved. Now we may even have a couple people join in and watch this tonight from those leagues. years later after we've all retired and moved around, and everybody still wants to keep playing in those leagues, even though now we're all dispersed all over the country. So it's just a really nice way to stay in touch with people that you might otherwise, lose contact with. So it's been a really fun opportunity. I'm only in 5 leagues this year, so just kind of had to cut back just a little bit. But Doge took 3 of them away. They said they needed to get more lean and downsize me a little bit. Doing what I can.
Well, and that's the thing about fantasy football that I think people that don't understand it or don't play it understand. The ability to bring people together from all walks of life, but also stay connected to people that maybe you were once really close to, and as people move away and time passes, it still provides an outlet to stay connected with people that you otherwise might grow apart from. And so that's something that I think is worth noting there, because that's a really cool part of your story that sticks out to me, is just the ability to stay connected to those people, whereas otherwise maybe not, at least not in the same way. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, just the fact we can stay together, and then when we do see each other, it's hi, how you doing? And you catch up on wife, kids, and then it immediately goes into 20 minutes of, did you see that? And what about that league? And who did he pick up? And you're right back in the like no time has passed, and you're talking trash about fantasy football stuff.
Yeah,
great environment, great fun.
That's the great part about it for sure. Let's take we don't have a ton of start set questions, or maybe that's because we're not in our normal time slot, but we do have a trade proposal question from the Wraith, and he says he has a trade proposal. He gives up Dobbins and Harvey. He gets White and Irving back. Is this just trading to trade, or which duo will be better down the stretch? We'll let our special guest Tim join in here and have the first word. Tim, what do you think about this trade proposal? Is it just trading to be trading, and who would potentially have the better end of it?
I think there's a lot of trading to be trading. I see going on right now, and I think it's a natural thing. I think, particularly if you're on the bubble and you're trying to make the playoffs and you think you're close and you're trying to just look for that one more piece, right? What's going to pull it all together as you go forward? I think there's it's just natural. I see it all the time. Now the trick is you don't want to fall into one of those trades where it's like, hey, here's 2 guys you don't ever want to put in your starting lineup for one of your blue chips or somebody that's going to be useful there. But I'll tell you what, I kind of like I've got a strong feeling this year about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they've had some challenges here lately, particularly with Bucky going down and some of that. But if you're getting the handcuff there, you might even hit the waiver wire for Sean Tucker and see what you can pull together on that front. But it feels like Baker Mayfield's year to me, and I think this week will be telling. What do they do with Buffalo? Buffalo's going to have a tough loss with Miami, right? So
right.
They're going to be fired up coming out of that, and or are they going to start falling apart? So this is kind of a critical week for Buffalo, I think, too. So
well,
my 2 cents.
I agree with you on the Buccaneers backfield, and if you take this trade, I would immediately go to see if Tucker is available and try to pick him up as well, especially if you've got an IR spot where you could put Irving right now. And I got to tell you, Baker Mayfield, it both makes me happy and sick at the same time as a Browns fan, because I mentioned on the show last week, it's a very Browns thing. They get the franchise quarterback and they don't like him anymore because it's a new GM, and trade him away and he's going somewhere else and just ball him out. And I love the dude. I think he's great. So I'm happy for his success, but just stings a little bit more, I guess. The Bills, I don't think, have an offensive identity right now. I mean, am I the only one in that boat that thinks that, Chuck? Does it feel like they don't have a go-to receiver right now? It's a hodgepodge of guys that 1 week it's one guy maybe making a play and another guy another. But when they need to make a play, they need a go-to guy. They don't really have that. And if James Cook can't run, 25 times for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they're behind the sticks, it feels like they're coming down to earth and realizing that, maybe letting Diggs go might not have been the great thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of inconsistency there. Probably Kincaid has been their best receiver since week one, and now he's hurt. Their go-to guy is always Josh Allen. It doesn't
Right.
matter what down, what distance. When Josh Allen is on the field, anything can happen. But again, I don't think they have, a identity like you were saying. They tend to run the ball a lot more this year. And hopping back to that trade question you guys just had up, when I look at a trade like that, that's just trade to trade, I try to identify the best player in the trade, and the best player in that trade is Bucky Irving. And the Bucks have already had their bye week. And I think Bucky's got to be close to getting ready to come back. I know the foot is healed, and I think he's only out now because of his shoulder. Plus, you're getting Rashad White in that deal. So if I was a part of that trade, I would probably lean towards the White and Bucky Irving side.
But here's a more important question, Dr. Harwood. Do you make the trade at all? Like, if you're, I mean, is it a situation where you get better, or is it still kind of status quo in that situation? Because I guess to me, it feels like there's no need to make that trade.
Well, okay. Now, Bucky Irving, I predict he'll come back probably week 13. So 13, you've got Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, and Carolina. Bucky Irving and Rashad White will play Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, at Miami, and then Carolina week 18. So that's a very – I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during the playoff run. I did some best balls with Brandon Fox. We both agreed that Tampa Bay is going to have the better schedule going down the stretch than Denver. And then you got week 12. Denver's on a bye. You're without him. And then you've got at Washington, at the Raiders, good matchups. But then you got Green Bay, Jacksonville week 16, and then at Kansas City. I've got Tampa Bay running backs ranked about 16th and 20th the rest of the way. And I've got the Denver running backs about 25 the rest of the way. I'd go ahead and pull on that trigger. You're getting an extra game, even though Bucky Irving may not be back to week 13. But Rashad White's there, so you're getting a game up on him. I'd go ahead and do it.
Well, that answers my question there. We got another trade question here before we wrap up the show for the night. This comes from, I'm guessing that's July. Do you trade Javonte for James Cook? Cook's playoff schedule being horrible is my only concern. So do you trade Javonte? I'm assuming that's Javonte Williams.
Yes.
Do you trade him for James Cook?
What do you think, Tim?
So I think that, back to the comment about Buffalo's offensive identity, I think the Buffalo needs to let Cook cook. I like Cook, and I think that he's going to be what brings them home. It's almost like people tend to say defense wins championships, but on the offensive side, running the ball is what's going to make Josh Allen successful, throwing the ball to the receiver core he has. So you start looking at Keon Coleman and Shakir, you start looking at across the many receivers he throws to, but no big rock star number one. There's no JSN or, Amon-Ra kind of guy running around that offense. So let Cook cook, open it up, and force everybody to come up in the box, and then you're going to open up those receivers. So I like going for Cook, and I think Buffalo's still a winner. They have some challenges to work through, but I think they're going to find their path and be in the playoffs doing it.
I think Cook's got the harder schedule, but I think he's the better player. And Buffalo has more. They've got an easier road to the playoffs. They've got less pressure than Dallas does.
Yeah, I completely agree. If I have an opportunity to get James Cook for Javonte Williams, I'm smash and accept there.
Well, as Matt Grant would say, pull.
I mean, this is a classic example of selling high, isn't it? I mean, Javonte Williams, a guy you probably took in the 9th or 10th round. You took him with the idea that you're going to, maybe plug him in on a bye week, but, he lights up and you're playing him every week. But I just, I'm not a believer in Javonte Williams long term. Now, he's proven everybody wrong so far. Maybe he continues to do so. But I know what I'm getting out of James Cook. I know the consistency I'm going to get out of James Cook. And so I'm going to take James Cook and play him every week with confidence. I'm not necessarily playing Javonte Williams with confidence. Like there might be weeks where I talk myself out of that. So I think you got to take the guy that you know you're going to play and you're not worried about it every week. But that's just my 2 cents on that. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for the night. We're hitting up on our hour time slot here. I just want to again reiterate and take the time to thank you, Tim, and all veterans out there. If you're watching, thank you for your service. Those of us like myself can yap here on the YouTubes. I sound like an old man, but can yap on the YouTubes because of the sacrifices that are made from our veterans. And so I certainly do thank you for that, as does everyone, I think, watching and listening. Or at least I know I could speak for Chuck and Dr. Harwood there as well. But we're going to send you off, Tim. Any final words or final thoughts before we sign off tonight?
Hey, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for so many kind words, and it's an honor to serve our country. And please keep taking care of those sailors and soldiers that are out there doing the hard work and being away from their families, and with all the mayhem and dysfunction going on in our systems right now, where they may or may not get paid sometimes. Please look out for them and take special care of them when you can. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks. That was
our pleasure, buddy.
Our pleasure for sure. We're going to sign off for the night here. Guys, final thoughts before I send us home.
I want to give a special shout out to another veteran that's in our league, Mr. Albert Flores, 20-year service along with his lovely wife, Andrea. Another quality human being. I'm proud to know this man.
Dr. Harwood.
Also proud to know the Honorable Tom Lawrence, one of our SBFFC longtime sponsors. Also a veteran and also a magistrate in Bowling Green, around the Delafield and Morgantown Road area. Always does a lot of community work. My mom has got to know him very well. They do some work for the veterans and disabled veterans together. My dad is a disabled veteran. And also I want everybody to Google Dan Claskin's Do Good Fantasy. We donate money every year to the Do Good Veterans we donate money to benefit veterans, and we do fantasy contests. I'm giving away an SBFFC team in 2026 to a Do Good Fantasy winner. And if I can raise some money somehow, I'd like to give a couple fan ball $20 entries away to a couple veterans this week. Try to get them to win an SBFFC team this upcoming week for next year.
Well, whatever veterans get that, don't listen to my fan ball advice. It's never very good. I'm just donating money anytime I play, it feels like. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to remember a couple of my family who are veterans. My Uncle Mark, who served in Desert Storm, my Uncle Lee, and Uncle Jasper. They all served military, and one of them is still with us, two are not. But it just a way to remember the service and the sacrifice. And I remember nights where I was very young, where my grandma would watch the news every night and just to make sure that he was still alive. And I don't think people that don't have family members understand kind of what that looks like. But that's a memory that I have, and it's ingrained in my memory. And one of the reasons I hated the news for a very long time. But either way, that's going to do it for us tonight. Next week, we will be back in our Friday night time slot from 8 to 9 Central Standard Time, 9 to 10 Eastern Time. For Chuck Ellis, for the good Dr. Brian Harwood, I'm Seth Birch, and you have been watching the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC here on the TN2M network of shows on YouTube. Tune in next week.